Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're glad to see you all out there supporting. Today we have a kind of a serious topic that we just have to discuss. And so we have a couple of guests, and of course we'll introduce our amazing Rob Lason. But first, I want to talk a little bit about Vanessa Guillen and who she is. Sometimes tragedy strikes. This is life, unfortunately, but tragedy struck Vanessa because of someone else. She was murdered. And anytime someone's murdered, it's just a horrific event. It's a tragedy, but especially when that young woman is just an early in her career in the Army at Fort Hood, and a kid. That's all there is to it. She was just a baby, and she was someone's daughter. She was someone's sister. She was someone's friend, and there's still justice that needs to be had for Vanessa. So that's what we're talking with Crystal as well as Richard Ojeda about some justice, the tragedy that happened, and what we as a community can do to support. So let's start off. Rob, hello. How are you, man? You're traveling, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. So I pretty much, I'm in a coffee shop right now, but it's it's kind of strange because I've been preparing for this show because I've wanted to talk about this so we can try to get this I Am Vanessa Guillen bill passed. And so all of a sudden, like, here it is the night before the show, and all this chaotic stuff had happened. So I ended up like out in the streets last night. I had to it was just, so now I'm in a coffee shop. My laptop broke, so now I got to stream from like my cell phone. But no matter what, I was gonna make it. Whatever kind of condition I was in this morning, I had to make sure I was here for this show. So, Crystal, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. Richard, thank you. Dave, I appreciate you trying to get the word out about Vanessa Guillen, justice for Vanessa Guillen. It's been a long journey, and I want to see this thing out. I want to make sure that this I Am Vanessa Guillen bill is passed so we can save other soldiers' lives and veterans' lives who, one, don't have the time or the ability to save their own life in a situation like Vanessa. See, if we would have had a bill passed like this prior to Vanessa Guillen joining the military, she probably wouldn't have been at death right now. She'd still be alive. So we need to get a bill like this out so the next Vanessa Guillen is saved, and has more resources and has a better way to let her unit and the military know what's going on. So and keep our soldiers safe. When they're in distress and they need help, they shouldn't be in fear. They should be able to come forward and with a welcoming, a warm hand and hug and taken care of. Again, these are young soldiers. Vanessa was young. She needed good mentorship. She needed good leadership, which wasn't there for her. And this is a sad day that we have to come together like this to talk about this. So hopefully there can be some change. And that's it, Dave. Thank you.
Yeah, let's get everyone up to speed with what the heck is going on. Who is Vanessa Guillen? Why do we care? And there's not a better person right now that can talk to us about that than you, Crystal. So let's talk about everything preceding her death and thereafter. Can you go into some details as to why we should care right now?
Well, the reason why everyone should care is because Vanessa Guillen was a 20-year-old stationed at Fort Hood. it was her dream to serve in the military since she was a young girl. As many of us, that's usually when we decide that that we're going to serve, it's because we want to. It's a volunteer situation. So she was experiencing a hostile work environment. Her supervisor was sexually harassing her. The environment at Fort Hood specifically is it's very pervasive, and it basically welcomes sexual harassment. And she had expressed to her family that she was being harassed, and she was trying to deal with it in her whatever way she could. But she was a lower enlisted. She was at the time an E3, which is a private first class. And like I said, she was 20 years old. She didn't have, she didn't have any rank. She wasn't a non-commissioned officer. So when she tried to, deal with it on her own, I mean, obviously that didn't work out. But like I said, she had told her family that she was being harassed, and she told her coworkers. And everybody who worked in that environment pretty much knows that what was going on. But she got called into work on her day off by Specialist Robinson. That's the individual that killed her. He called her to the arms room. He told her, "You need to come to work. I need you to do something." So she showed up to work, and she was in the arms room with him. And for those people who don't know what an arms room is, it's a vault. It's basically a vault where we keep all of our sensitive items, like night vision goggles, 50 cals, the AR-15s, any high dollar equipment is kept in this vault. And something happened in there, and he beat her with a hammer. He beat her to death with a hammer. And then he shoved her into a black tough box, kind of like a black storage container. And then later wheeled her out in broad daylight, put her in put the box in his vehicle, drove and went and picked up his girlfriend, Cecily, and then they drove like 20 some miles out to the Leon River, where they tried to burn her, but that didn't work. So then they chopped her up, and then they buried her in like 3 different graves, and they poured cement on top of her because obviously they were trying to conceal the body. And I guess the gruesomeness behind this is the fact that it could have been anybody. It could be anybody. It could have been me. And when I found out about her, going missing, it just absolutely infuriated me because I know the environment in which she was working in. Women, and I'm only going to speak for women. I'll let Richard talk about men because I don't have experience in that department. But we experience an enormous amount of harassment in the military, and the reason why everybody should be concerned, again, I'll circle back around to that, is that your son or daughter could be subjected to this environment. And I don't know anybody whose son or daughter is getting ready to enlist or, is in the service, and they're comfortable right now with their loved one being in the military, because it's not a safe environment. It's not safe. There's no rights. The Ferris Doctrine prevents us from having any rights. You basically sign away all your rights, saying, "Oh, if anything happens to me, oh well." And it's really unfortunate because these young men and women that go in with the expectations of serving the country, we're taught to obey. We're taught to be obedient. We're taught to, we're trained to have resilience. So we tend to tolerate a lot of things. But I don't think that rape should be, or even sexual harassment should be a occupational hazard to the military. But again, it could be anybody. It could have been anybody. I mean, she showed up, she went in on her day off just to go see like what the hell this guy did. And he got her in a secluded area. And like I said, obviously he probably, I mean, nobody knows exactly what happened, right? Because this is the report that is redacted and we still don't know all the details. But we know that she died in that arms room. She was beaten to death with a hammer. So I guess the message is that, this could be your daughter. This could be your son. Men deal with a lot of harassment too. They deal with a lot of hazing, particularly hazing. And I say hazing because that's the word that they use, when in fact it's harassment. That's the word we should be using, is harassment, because that's what it is. Anytime, you're being bullied at work, or, being made fun of. Infantry males, I know, deal with a lot of hazing because, they're in an all-male environment, and the whole term boys will be boys. This, the locker room play and all that stuff comes into play. But when there's a young man who's not able to defend himself, and, there's usually alcohol involved, or just people being jerks, and these men are assaulted. And the men usually are the ones who don't report because it's embarrassing, it's demasculating. And usually young men who have been assaulted in the military usually commit suicide within a year because it's just something that they can't deal with. I mean, you're taking away their manhood, basically. It's very demasculating. So my message to everybody is, do you really want your son or daughter to serve in the military right now, knowing that there's a chance that this could happen to them? I mean, I'm not comfortable with my 19-year-old, and I served. I'm retired. I'm a retired E8, and I loved serving. I didn't experience this. I was never assaulted in the military. I did deal with sexual harassment, but my childhood prepared me for the military. I grew up, I'm from the streets. So I came from a impoverished situation. I came from the barrio. So my childhood prepared me for the military. So when I went in and there was ever any type of harassment or anything, I'm a very outspoken person. So I just, I didn't have a lot of problems. But not everybody's like me. Not everybody grew up like me. Not everybody grew up on the streets. Some people came from suburban neighborhoods, and they don't, they came from I don't know. I don't want to say normal environment because I don't even know what normal is anymore. But but they're not prepared for the harassment that they're going to have to deal with. And in the military, you have to be tough, right? I mean, you guys know this. Dave, Richard, Rob, you guys know it takes a lot of mental strength because of all the.
Yeah, absolutely. When our kids or your kids go to sign up for the Army, they're not going to show them the Vanessa Guillen footage. They're not going to say, hey, they're not going to get a briefing to that you might need to really watch your back when you get stationed at some of these bases, and these kids are coming from good homes and good neighborhoods, and some of these bases are more dangerous than being in Iraq because you don't have a weapon. Yeah, you're in the military. When you're safer in Iraq with a gun than you are at Fort Hood stationed there. I'm just sorry to say that because they don't give you a pistol to hold. If Vanessa Guillen, we even would have had a pistol on her, she could have defended herself that day. She should have. She's military. She was on her base. She should have been armed because that's what we need. We need that for our soldiers because so stuff like that doesn't happen because nobody's going to take care of us and take care of them. And it's really sad. It really is.
Right. But also But think about this, Rob. Okay, she shouldn't have even have. Okay, first of all, you shouldn't have to carry a weapon on your day off to go,
Yeah.
report to one of your coworkers is calling you in to do some, some BS work, and you shouldn't have to carry a gun to go meet up with your coworkers.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
absolutely. You
I
shouldn't. No, you shouldn't. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. You shouldn't have to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I hear what you're saying, we do. You are safer. There's more deaths stateside than there is overseas. We lose more service members to murder, suicide, overdose in the States than we do in combat.
We have a failure in leadership is what we have. I'm not sure as to what type of reports were submitted in terms of any harassment in her unit. But I will tell you that, the whole situation where people have turned up missing at Fort Hood. I mean, they absolutely relieved the commanding general of the post, and they should have, because at the end of the day, you are responsible for the good and the bad that happens under your watch. But it's not just the commander of the post. It's her squad leader, her team leader, her platoon sergeant, her first sergeant, her company commander, her battalion commander, her battalion command sergeant major. This is the type of things that, we cannot allow the boys will be boys mentality to continue. And I'll be honest with you, I spent 24 years, I was a combat troop, I was a light airborne sapper. When I first, come in, women were not in our units. And then women were only allowed to be in the HHCs in our units. But that is over with. That's changed. Women are now infantry. They're in the infantry. They're in the armor. They're combat engineers. They've graduated from sapper school, from ranger school. A female just recently graduated from the Special Forces selection course. We cannot sit and say, well, there's only a couple of them and this is new, so give us some time. We can't do that. A failure in leadership is the reason why so many people are committing suicide. So many people are being sexually assaulted. And the only way to stop this is to hold people accountable. And I mean, hold them accountable with an iron freaking fist. We cannot continue to go down this path and allow people that have served this country, have taken that oath, to be mistreated and assaulted and let it just get away. People need to be held accountable for this, and people need to be in Leavenworth for this.
Right.
You know what? I agree, Richard. But there's a culture. First, there's two problems. The problem is there's a culture of this within society. Mm-hmm. Right. And if you start narrowing stuff down, yes, the military, of course, would have a subculture of this. But the culture in the United States and the world, I would say, is that women are mistreated. Okay. One, why don't we really hone in on training people to be kind, good, responsible leaders, right? I can tell you 24 years in the Air Force, there were very few leaders that I would say, you know what, General so-and-so, I'd follow you anywhere. I respect you to your grave. And so if we had a culture of leadership, right, and a culture of openness, if Vanessa or anyone else felt like they're being harassed, could say to their supervisor, hey, you know what, sir, ma'am, this is going on. And that shit is nipped in the bud. It's taking, there's no gray area to it, right?
But here's the thing. It's a check the block mentality that we have in our military. It is, there's sexual assault training. There's all this stuff. It takes place. You have to have these conversations. The problem is it's a check the block mentality. And the reason why we know it's a check the block mentality is because it still goes on. I retired on December 31st, 2013. My first day of freedom from the military was 1 January 2014. And let me tell you something. I can remember when I was a company commander, addressing sexual assault, not because it was this, but I'm talking about speaking to my troops and telling them, you got to be, you can't do this. You got to be, you got to treat each other with respect. The problem is it's still a check the block mentality, and we cannot allow it to continue to be that way. People need to go down for this. I mean, you're talking about, and it's not just her. It's not just her. I mean, this has been going on for a long time, and we cannot continue to go down this path. Leaders have got to absolutely enforce this with an iron fist. If you allow it to go on in one of your teams in your company, then you're guilty with this. And that's why everybody in her chain of command should be done. I'm not talking about slaps on the wrist. I'm talking about all the way up through her brigade command sergeant major, relieved, because I guarantee you this was heard of. I guarantee you that the leadership in that unit knew what the hell took place. And if they didn't push it further, then they are absolutely guilty with this crime as well. I mean, we cannot allow, we desperately need females in our military. And females have done amazing things. Females have won silver stars in combat, and it's only a matter of time before we start seeing the Congressional Medal of Honor being placed on them, because they're in the fight with us, and we have to respect that. And this is a topic that we've been dealing with this for as long as women have been in the military. But the boys will be boys mentality must end ASAP. It cannot continue to go on. And we have not just her. There are a lot of people who have disappeared. There's a lot of people who have committed suicide because of this situation. And sexual assault, sexual harassment cannot be tolerated. And I don't care who you are. I don't care how many stars you have on your uniform. If you are complicit in allowing this stuff to go, you've got to go. And that's why that commander of Fort Hood was relieved, and he deserved to be relieved.
Right. But Richard, he was relieved and he was reassigned. He's now at Fort Bliss.
Then that right there.
There's no accountability.
Yeah, I never heard that. Let me tell you something. That right there is a huge failure, and our military should absolutely be called out for that. And I'm gonna tell you this. I'll just say this. Everybody remembers the Walter Reed in DC, when they relieved the commander because of the mold on the walls and all that. That's one of the problems that we have in this military, because they relieved that commander over the mold on the walls in the rooms of our warriors who have returned home from fighting and being wounded in combat. They relieved the commander of Walter Reed, but they replaced that commander. And oh, by the way, that commander that they relieved was only there for about 2 months before they relieved him. They replaced him with the guy that was there the previous 4 years that was in charge, where all that shit come from. That's a problem, and apparently that's exactly what has happened with this commander as well, and that's unacceptable. These people need to lose their careers.
They need to lose rank.
Absolutely.
Because here's like, if I were queen for a day, like my solution would be take their rank, because now you're messing with their pay, right? You mess with people's pay, people start paying attention. So I say every single one of them, take their rank, bust them down in rank, and an other than honorable discharge. They should not have access to all of their benefits and all this other bullshit. Because until you make an example of somebody's got to be the example, then this shit's going to keep happening, because it's been happening. I retired in 2014, and I was discharged for PTSD due to hostile work environment, because I was a whistleblower. And I reported a senior NCO not doing their job, which their job was to make sure that service members get treatment for drug and alcohol abuse. And I was pushed out because I was told, like, you're making too much noise. You're talking too much. And it's like, all right. So, but see, I own my DD 214 now. I own it. So now I'm going to be talking about it even more so. And I'm going to be in your face, because it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. This abuse of authority, this abuse of power is absurd, because now we've got, I mean, they found a soldier looking for Vanessa. They found a male soldier, Gregory Morales. They found him looking for her. Are you serious?
Yeah.
And people are still, why are we even still having this conversation? Like, why am I still having to ask people to please support this bill?
But also understand that, you know, people need to also look at this. You know, Crystal is not trying to destroy our military. Crystal is trying to strengthen our military. Us people that retired, served in the military, veterans, you know, it's something that we care deeply for. It was our life. Most of us have given our adult lives to this. You know, it's not that we're trying to ruin people's careers. It's we're trying to strengthen the military that we believe in. And you're absolutely right. And it's everything that you're doing is spot on, and you need to do that. And it is a shame when people basically try to tell you, you don't want to make any waves. That's absolutely the most cowardice thing that a leader can say. And everybody should be held accountable. I mean, you know, like you said, Fort Hood, Texas, it's not just Fort Hood, but Fort Hood is just one of the places that have been highlighted because it has absolutely like exploded down there. It's a lack of leadership, and a lack of leadership is dangerous. It's not just dangerous when you were in combat. It's dangerous when you were in garrison as well. And obviously we are seeing that by these actions that are taking place from other soldiers.
You know, it's funny. I served 2 years as the Inspector General in Portugal, and as the IG, you have your button on everything that's going on in the base. You know everything, and that's your job. And if it's 2 o'clock in the morning at the club trying to figure out, or if it's 4 in the morning at the dorms, whatever it is, that's your job. And I'm wondering, where the hell was IG during all of this time? I mean, she was missing, and obviously there's proceedings that the police, the MPs have to go through, and OSI, your equivalent of OSI, the Army equivalent of Office of Special Investigation, but the IG didn't get involved in this until well after, which is weird to me. Richard, do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I'll tell you right now. The IG is another organization in the military, and I know that you served as IG in Portugal for 2 years, but I'm going to tell you, it's not the same everywhere. It's not the same everywhere. There's places where the only time the IG wants to get involved is if you have already basically done your own research and have gathered all the evidence, and you're going to hand it to them where they can say, got it, and then they automatically get a victory that puts them in the spotlight. I had a friggin' guy that was absolutely selling everything, selling everybody's gear that was sent back from being wounded on Amazon and all this stuff. And we caught him, and they did nothing for us. They did nothing for us because why? And we handed them, we showed them the photographs of the Amazon or the, what was it, eBay or whatever it is. We showed them where this guy was selling that stuff. They did nothing. Because at the end of the day, in many areas, the IG only wants to step in when they automatically have a guaranteed victory that puts them in the spotlight. And if it's not, they stay out of it. I'll tell you right now, I have no love for the IG in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. When I was there, spent about 16 years at Fort Bragg. But during the 2006, 2007 timeframe, I despised the IG because I gave them everything and they failed to do anything.
I love you anyways.
Yeah. I think that a lot of these, if it doesn't have a direct impact on them, they don't give a shit. I mean, they don't care. They don't care. And they proved that at Fort Hood with Vanessa's situation, because they didn't, they said, well, they didn't even really start looking for her until like 2 months after. And it wasn't, the only reason they started to look for her aggressively the way they did is because the family was like not having it. They're like, where's my daughter? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't talk to my daughter every day, and then she just stops calling me, and I'm just gonna not worry about my daughter. Like the command wasn't prepared for the Guillen family. They were not prepared. And the Guillen family consists of me too, and so many other veterans, because we were all like, where the hell is Vanessa? Where is she? How does she have her, her keys, her wallet was still in the arms room, her car, you know what I mean? It's like, how do you not give a shit? How do you not care? Seriously, this is a beautiful young lady. Okay. Beautiful young lady. This was a rising star. You know what I mean? She wasn't a a piece of shit soldier. She was a very she was very charismatic. She was super athletic. She was a good soldier. She was always showing up to work on time. And all of a sudden she just goes missing and nobody cares. Like, they didn't care. And it wasn't until the family, started protesting outside of the gate and getting the media involved that they said, okay, maybe we should start doing something. Right? And that's the unfortunate side of this, is that their lack of concern for her just goes to show how much the military doesn't care about their lower enlisted troops. And that's really what it comes down to, is that, and I tell people all the time, everything is funny when your pockets are full of money. And all these officers and senior officers that, you know what I mean? It's like, they don't care. They don't care. And it's really sad until it's their daughter. I guarantee you, if that commander of Fort Hood, if it was his daughter that went missing, I bet you all 40,000 troops at Fort Hood would be looking for his daughter.
Yeah.
That base would have been shut down. That base would have been shut down until they found her.
Yeah, and you can honestly think that they were actively trying to cover this up. I think leadership was actively trying to cover this up. I mean, just what you said, her keys and wallet were found in the arms room. Her vehicle was literally in the parking lot. I mean, you don't have to be, Quincy from the television show to realize she's missing, but her car is here and her wallet and keys are here. Skullduggery is afoot, Right. That doesn't happen. And you cannot tell me that some of these senior leaders that are highly educated can't put two and two together immediately and say, there is foul play here. Immediately. You had to wait until the family finally starts speaking out. That is such a failure in the leadership.
So, Richard, let me ask you, why do you think that?
Why do I think?
Yeah, what's your why of the cover-up? Why do you believe that? I'm curious.
Because I think that it has to be that they realized something was up and they knew that this could come back on them. Leadership is responsible. Remember, you are responsible for the good and the bad. Whenever you do well, you make sure that you push that credit down to your troops. But whenever things go bad, you have to be willing to stand up and take it on your shoulders. And once again, you cannot sit and tell me that company commander, that first sergeant, everybody knows the first sergeant daggone knows everything about a unit. You cannot tell me that first sergeant didn't go, hey, sir, her car is in the parking lot. Her keys and wallet are in the arms room. We've got a problem. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm thinking, why is her stuff in the arms room? Who's allowed in the arms room?
Yeah.
I mean, to me right there's a red flag right off the bat. Says the armor has some questions to answer.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they could have called IG and said, you need to get down here now. IG doesn't get a pass for 2 months.
No.
Some failures here.
I'm curious, though. So, here, obviously, leadership didn't murder her. She was murdered by a coworker. At what point does leadership say we're going to cover this up?
Because I'll tell you what, how many times before she disappeared did she speak to people in the unit and raise the red flag about sexual assault, about sexual harassment? How many times of that? And that's the thing. She's been daggone raising this red flag up for a while. The first sergeant knew about it. The squad leader knew about it. The platoon sergeant knew about it. The team leader knew about it. The company commander, the XO, they knew about it. So the thing about this is now she's missing. And oh, by the way, holy shit, we kind of have been pushing all of her comments under the rug. This is going to come back and it's going to blow up in our faces. And that's exactly I bet that is exactly what it was.
That's the nail that I was looking for, right on the head, brother.
And she had reported, like if you, in that Fort Hood report, the initial report, and then now the report that was just recently released. I mean, I've read that thing so many times and it just infuriates me every time because she was being sexually harassed by her platoon sergeant. There's written documentation that she was being sexually harassed by her platoon sergeant. This is an E7 who, by the way, is still in the military, who also got reassigned to Fort Bliss.
Yeah, and at a minimum, the first time something come out that said that she's being sexually harassed by her platoon sergeant, you don't get to say, okay, let's just let this sit for about a month and let's see if they can work it out. Negative. That platoon sergeant gets called into the first sergeant, the commander's office immediately, and they start figuring out what they're going to do, and that's a disciplinary issue. You either move her out of that platoon to another platoon in another company, or you deal with this platoon sergeant. They did nothing.
Deal with the platoon sergeant.
Do what?
You got to deal with the platoon sergeant.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm saying,
he's just going to sexually harass everybody else around him.
You were absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. But at the end of the day, though, remember, we have to make sure before we start firing people and things like that you have the proof. So at a minimum, the first thing that should have happened, and it's a very easy thing, is say, okay, we're going to move her. We're going to move the young soldier because she's not comfortable in this unit. We're going to put her in another platoon, in another part of the battalion, or even in another battalion someplace. That right there is the first thing that should have happened. But make no mistake about it, this platoon sergeant should have immediately been investigated, dealt with, blah, blah, blah. That's exactly what I said, blah, blah, blah. I never said that. But I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Something needed to happen.
Now, Crystal, I want to make sure that we're not connecting two dots that don't connect. She wasn't murdered by her platoon sergeant.
No.
Right? She was murdered by a coworker. So I want to make sure that everybody that's watching this, they don't start connecting two dots that don't connect. And correct me if I'm wrong. Am I wrong?
I think that there needs to be some investigations that also make sure. What's the relationship between the platoon sergeant and the armor? I mean, there's questions that need to be asked. This isn't saying that the platoon sergeant is guilty of anything. But at the end of the day, you cannot leave no stone unturned. Something caused this young armor to say, hey, you need to come into work. Something caused him to pick up that phone and give her that order to come into that arms room. Why? Why? That's the question. Why did he call her there?
Yeah,
that's important.
And the answers are there, but they're redacted.
Well, have everybody here has saw the movie? What is the movie with Tom Cruise where he's the lawyer?
Oh, A Few Good Men.
A Few Good Men. Remember, but here's the thing. Remember that in the end, the guy looked at him when they told him that he was going to be dishonorably discharged from the military, and he says, but I did what they basically insinuated. I did what they wanted me to do. I did what they told me. I called the code red, right? Because that's the thing. Was this a similar type of an act where this young armor believed that he needed to initiate whatever the code red is? I mean, I'm saying that we cannot leave no stone unturned.
Yeah. And they knew that she had been murdered too, because they had a detail clean up the arms room. They had soldiers come in to clean the arms room because there was still there was blood and stuff everywhere. So how do you not address this? And then the bystander complicity, that shit needs to end too. This bystander complicity, and it goes all the way up the ranks. You have, in my situation, I had 06s saying, in my situation, it was like, hey, why isn't anybody addressing what's going on with Sergeant Romero? and they literally, it's like, quote unquote, that's above my pay grade. Screw that.
Yeah.
That's bullshit, because you have an obligation as a leader to do something. You have an obligation as a leader. And a lot of times they don't want to say anything because they don't want to jeopardize their careers, right? They don't want to rock the boat. I had an 06 female get her 1-star during my investigation. And it's like, she didn't want to rock the boat because she didn't want to not get her 1-star. And it's bullshit. It's like, when they care more about themselves than their troops, you have no business being a leader. You are not a leader. You are a coward. Period.
Sadly, in our military, we like to think that, as you move up the ladder in rank, everybody moves up that ladder because of the wonderful, accomplishments and that they're the perfect, role model. It's not always the case. It's not. I mean, everybody knows people that have moved up the ladder that absolutely, don't have what it takes. And clearly, if you have a person, and you got to understand that, it gets even harder as you move up in rank. It gets harder. When you're competing for sergeant major, when you're competing for full bird colonel, when you're competing for a battalion command at a certain place, make no mistake about it. You see people sometimes show the ugliness that they try to hide, and that's a fact. And I mean, I wish I could say that that's not something that we had to deal with in the military, but it is. It absolutely is. And and we cannot continue being silent about these situations, especially now that we have people that are being murdered because of it.
Yeah. And I'll give you another example. Let me give you another example of how the leadership, how shady it comes, how awful they are. So I had a lieutenant colonel who had a major in his battalion that he had it out for him. He's like, he didn't like the guy. So the lieutenant colonel started a rumor that the major was going around saying that, he was sleeping with enlisted soldiers, and that, he was on a conquest to sleep with as many enlisted soldiers or whatever. And this is the lieutenant colonel that started this rumor on this major so that it would get back to the females, and the females would file a sexual harassment complaint, because that would prevent the major from getting the command. So it's almost like they also use it to their advantage when they're trying to get other people in trouble. Because if you have a sexual harassment complaint against you, it basically stops anything that's going on with you, right? It's an administrative flag. So it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that they use these things to, they use it also as a weapon, a tool. And that's what also makes it very hard for women to come forward, because there's individuals that there's false allegations. I mean, the Vanessa Guillen Act is going to cover so many things, right? Because a lot of people, people bring up the fact that, oh, well, what about false allegations? Absolutely, there are false allegations out there. Yes, there are. But this is more the reason why we need an independent investigator, an outside source to investigate. And then if they can either substantiate or unsubstantiate the claims. So if there's a false allegation, you're going to find out, and it's going to get, okay, it was unsubstantiated, and then you move on.
And there needs to also be that if they do the investigation and they find that it was untrue, then there needs to be repercussions for there as well. Absolutely. I've dealt with, I dealt with a commander that, was too chicken shit to deal with one of his, key NCOs. And instead of doing the right thing and dealing with him, he didn't. But then when he left, he finally got the guy by giving him a shitty a non-commissioned officer evaluation report, But once again, he allowed that person to be a complete jackaloon to all the troops for as long as he was there. You know, the commander should have showed some courage and got rid of him a long time before he left and then did him with an NCOER. We have a lack of courage in people in the military. I mean, look, I'm not saying that it's everybody, but it doesn't mean that we don't have people that are doing these things. It doesn't mean that we don't have leaders that literally would look the other way if they thought it could help them elevate themselves another step on the ladder. You know, you would like to think that everybody in the military gets to where they are because of, you know, their merit, because of the things that they bring to the table. It's not always the case. Believe me, I've served under some people a few times that I absolutely, without a doubt, believe that they were complete toxic leaders. But once again, when you are below a toxic leader, you don't have much of a say to deal with the toxic leader. You just have to hope that the people above that toxic leader are paying enough attention, looking down and going, damn, that's a shame. And I have lost a wonderful friendship with a guy that retired as a 1-star general. And it wasn't because he did anything to me. It was because I knew that he knew what was going on and he chose to not do anything about it. And therefore, I have nothing to do with him.
Yeah. And a lot of this too, it contributes to our suicide rate, which is why the bills that I'm currently advocating for are obviously the Vanessa Guillen Act, that's what we're talking about today, but also the Brandon Act. And the Brandon Act is a suicide prevention bill. And because a lot of times, a lot of these, like I told you earlier, males that are assaulted usually commit suicide within a year. And even, you know, females, it contributes to our suicide rate, our already high suicide rate. And a lot of times when service members go and they get help for, you know, whatever trauma they endured, they're retaliated against and they're made fun of for seeking mental health help. Their jobs get threatened. And it's like, well, I wouldn't have to go get mental health help if I wasn't being harassed at work. So it's almost like they create the environment and then they get mad at you for getting treatment for the environment that they created. Like, it makes no sense. I mean, that's, you know, I mean, and I use my situation as an example because that's the only experience I have, right, is what I went through. I was being harassed at work. And so I went and I sought mental health help. And then they were like, oh, see, she's crazy. Something's wrong with her. We knew something was wrong with her. And I'm like, no, you're wrong with me. You're what's wrong with me. You guys they create the environment. And then they use that against you. They're like, oh, see, that person that, you know, that male or that female, they're crazy. They've got mental health problems. And then they say you're no longer fit for duty. And then they kick you out. And that's what they want to do. They want to get rid of the people that are making noise, the people that are calling attention to their bullshit. And it's weakening our force. It's I mean, I already know that our numbers are down as it is, and it's only going to continue to decline because people don't want to serve anymore. Not in this environment. Soldiers are getting out. They're only doing like 2-3 years. We have a lot of service members that are getting out early because A, they're being sexually harassed and they're like, I did not sign up for this shit. B, they're being harassed for or hazed, like the males. So they're just like, screw this shit. I didn't sign up for this either. Or, you know, they're just for mistreatment.
There's that, but I mean, there's also, I mean, today, I mean, we've been at war for 20 years. You know, I mean, I was selected for lieutenant colonel, and I turned down the promotion to lieutenant colonel because I knew, and I was told by a general officer that I would be taking a light airborne sapper battalion, which was the cream of the crop for a combat engineer officer. But I turned it down because I had literally. It was just like the 6 out of the last 10 years of my military career, it was gone, you know, and I got tired of that. And I realized that if I take this promotion to lieutenant colonel and I take this battalion, I'm going back to combat again. I was almost killed 5 times and almost captured once. I started realizing that, my time is running out, but I needed family time. So that's a big issue, and I'll tell you right now, when I was in Germany in 1992, I had all I wanted to be was a paratrooper, and I got orders for Fort Hood, Texas. And I looked at my sergeant and I said, I'm going to get out of the Army once I get to Fort Hood, Texas, because I had no desire to go to Fort Hood. Fort Hood has never been a post that I've ever known that was a top-notch post, and luckily my sergeant started making some phone calls and got me switched to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. But, there's all kinds of reasons why people are getting out of the military. But, this toxic leadership for females especially, until we can treat them with the respect that they deserve, this is going to continue being an issue in terms of retaining females in the military. And then if we don't do something with this sexual assault, where, we got to stop just basically checking the block by saying, we spoke about it. We got to make sure that the leadership of all levels in our military are serious about respecting and taking care of the soldiers, to include the female soldiers.
Yeah. And the grooming that happens in the military with these young women. A lot of these senior officers, they groom these young women because they know that, that it's about obedience, right? So they use their power to get what they want. These senior leaders use their power to manipulate these young women. And it's like, it's got to stop. It's really got to stop. And there needs to be, again, like Richard said, there's got to be accountability, because until we start holding people accountable, 30 years ago, we were talking about tailhook. It's been 30 years since tailhook.
Yeah.
It's been how many years since Aberdeen? It's been 2015 was Lavina Johnson. Lavina Johnson was murdered overseas. When they found her, she had a gunshot. She was shot in the face, and they said she shot herself. She had a broken jaw. So she broke her own jaw, poured bleach on her genitals, and then shot herself? Please, give me a break. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And then you want the families. Let's talk about the families. Then the families have to, they get a knock on their door and they get handed a folded flag and no answers. Like, no answers. That's crap. You think any mom or dad is going to be handed a folded flag and they're like, oh, well, your daughter died. She took her own life. But then the report is like, she had bleach on her genitals. She had a broken jaw. She had bruises all over her body, but she committed suicide. Give me a break. Wake up, people. This is ridiculous. Look at all the women that are committing suicide. And you look at their tag files, they had reported sexual assault. And people are reporting.
You're spot on. You are spot on. And right now, what really needs to happen is our military needs to absolutely go into a situation where they go right now and they pull every single sexual assault record that they have, and they need to start conducting real serious investigations into every single one of them.
Yeah, all 20,000. All 20,000.
Hey, it's going to take some time, but at the end of the day, if we're going to take care of the military, which has a lot of females, then we have to do the right thing. It may take some time. It may take a lot of man hours. Guess what? Tough shit needs to be done.
Yeah, and women make up like 20% of the military.
Yeah.
So, and like right now, our stance with LULAC is that, okay, well, we're just going to encourage Latinas not to join. There you go. We're gonna stop your recruits. So we're gonna start affecting their bottom line. And like I said, when you start messing with people's money, people start paying attention. So they're not going to be able to. They're not going to be able to meet their end strength, because we're just going to stop recruits. If we got to go and, protest, hand out Vanessa Guillen flyers at the MEPS right outside the front door, you know what I mean? Like, people need to know that this is what you're walking into. People need to, that's why Vanessa Guillen's face needs to be everywhere as a reminder that this is, one, that this is happening, and two, we're not going to allow it to happen anymore. And that's why, like, there's murals of her going up all over the country. I think a mural of Vanessa Guillen needs to be near every base as a reminder that we're not doing this no more. And people need to know what they're getting into.
I think that leadership across the military, if they're serious about doing the right thing, those murals should be on the damn bases.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And a lot of people are really upset, at the work that I'm doing. They're saying, oh, you're making the military look bad. No, the military is making the military look bad. This poor leadership is making the military look bad. No, because, I was very proud to serve. I didn't have any problems. I worked with men. Luckily, I worked with men. I had good leadership. I had some bad leadership there toward the end. And unfortunately, I learned more from my bad leadership than I did from the good leadership. But I don't regret anything. At least I can look at myself in the morning and know that I didn't turn a blind eye to my soldiers. So I look at myself as more like a volunteer willing to lose my career because I was not going to allow people to mistreat my soldiers anymore. I just wasn't, and then that's the other thing that I don't understand is that they want us to be good leaders. They want us to be good leaders. They want us to stand up for our troops. But then when we do that, we get stonewalled. Like, there's NCOs out there that are good NCOs. There's a lot of really good NCOs out there. And they're being stonewalled by the command, by the leadership. So it just all comes down to leadership. That's really what it all funnels down to. It's just poor leadership, not wanting to take, accountability for their actions. They're more concerned about their promotions, about how it's going to make them look, how it's going to affect their OERs. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like, what's sad is that they're, like I said, they're weakening their own force. It's just making us a weaker military. People say, oh, they have a new, they just amended the 600, what is it, the 670-1, women can have ponytails now.
Yeah.
And the men are complaining. And it's like, you should be worried about, going to work and getting assaulted. Like, why do you care about if I have a braid or not? It's stupid. It's dumb. We're worried about the wrong things. We need to be worried about whether our troops are safe at work.
Yep.
Because we know when we sign up that there's a chance that, there's a high probability that we're gonna go to war. Okay. We know that. We are very aware. But what we also should not be worried about whether I'm gonna go to work and I'm gonna get killed. Really?
Even, nobody should even worry about going to work and getting harassed or assaulted.
Yeah.
On a daily basis by people that they're supposed to trust. Look, we have to start winding down, unfortunately. We probably could talk for hours on end on this topic and every other topic surrounding it. It's just unfortunate that we don't live in a utopia where everyone wants to be kind and good and do well for the next person. And I think instead of looking at what you can do for yourself, one should look at what they can do for others in service, in gratitude, in Dave's utopia, I guess, because that's just the way that we're supposed to be. That's the way we were born into this world. That's the way that tribes were back in the day. And it's just unfortunate that we've lost that. We've lost that through greed, through the desire to see ourselves succeed on the backs of others. And that's just the truth. And I think the closer that we can get to understanding our actions, understanding our why. What the hell are we doing every day? Why are we doing this? You know, why are we covering stuff up? Why? Oh, it's because I don't want to lose my job. Well, let's take the I out of it. And I think I don't know, in that Dave utopia, everyone is just happy. We're all succeeding with each other. And when we start to see someone fail, one of the 22, we go, oh, wait a minute. No, I really did ask you, how are you today? And want to know. And we did something about it. So I think that's what I would leave this conversation with. Rob, do you have any closing remarks, brother, before we take off?
Well, check us out. Our next follow-up with Ms. Crystal Romero and Richard Ojeda. We're going to have another live stream, hopefully here in a few weeks, where we're going to put out some good information and more info where you can follow the I Am Vanessa Guillen Bill Act. And so we can get you guys support, and we can try to get this passed and try to save as many more military soldiers' lives as we can with our bill here. So I just want to pray, if you guys don't mind, I want to pray for Vanessa Guillen's family, that they've found, hopefully, are still, hopefully can have justice for Vanessa Guillen one day. Yeah, I want to pray for Vanessa, that she rests in peace, and that she's safe, and just and everybody. I want to pray for everybody who was looking for her and who's been involved in justice for Vanessa Guillen, to try to. I know her sisters are trying to get this going, and so also here I'm going to read a little something. Dear Lord, hear my prayer, O Lord. Let my cry come to you. Do not hide your face from me. I am in the day of my distress. Incline your ear to me. Answer me speedily in the day when I call. For my days pass away like smoke. My bones burn like a furnace. My heart is struck down like grass and has withered. I forget to eat my bread because of my loud groaning. My bones cling to my flesh. I am like a desert owl of the wilderness, like an owl of the waste places. I lie awake. I am like a lonely sparrow on the housetop. All the day my enemies taunt me. Those who deride me use my name for a curse. For I eat ashes like bread and mingle tears with my drink. Because of your indignation and anger, for you have taken me up and thrown me down. My days are like an evening shadow. I wither away like grass. But you, O Lord, are enthroned forever, and you are remembered throughout all generations. Amen.
Thank you, Rob, for that. Crystal, Richard, I want to thank you guys both for being here, sharing your knowledge, your expertise, your desire to see things better. And that's why you're here, is your desire to see things better. To everyone that's watching, thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the family. We appreciate it. And I just want to leave you with one thing. You have good inside of you. You can be great. You can be good. You can be kind. And sometimes it takes a lot to be the person that you're supposed to be. But remember, there's always a sacrifice. Not being the person you're supposed to be, or being the person that you're supposed to be. Choose the latter. With that, thank you, everybody. I appreciate you.
Everybody.
Thanks, guys.